Hello and blessings, magical community. Welcome back to my channel, Emerald Moon. I'm back. It's really great to have you here. If this is the first time that you have visited my channel, welcome. And how is everybody doing today? I hope you're doing well. I was going to film this video outside in front of the big gum trees out the front of where I live, but at present there is extreme bushfires blazing across Queensland and northern New South Wales. We're not in the immediate danger zone here in Brisbane, but we are getting all the smoke blown into Brisbane, and the sky nearly looks overcast, as that's how much smoke there is. So there's 80 fires currently blazing at the moment, and 150 homes have been destroyed by the fires, and to date there has been 3 lives lost. So intense times at the moment. I would like to light a candle for the souls who lost their lives in the fires. It's a very tragic. So I'm lighting this candle. May the souls that have lost their lives in the bushfires be at peace, and may they travel safely to the other side. May the grief of their loved ones no comfort, and I send out protection to all others. Who face the fear and uncertainty. May they be protected and kept safe. And so it is. Now on to the book review on this book called Trees That Call Australia Home. This book is a celebration of the spiritual, cultural, environmental, and economic qualities, geography, and botanical complexity of our trees. Trees that are increasingly vital as we search for solutions to climate change, renewable energy, and more sustainable lifestyles in the 21st century. The topics and the information that I was most interested in this book was to find out how our distinctly unique Australian trees have contributed to our Australian culture, and what symbology and folklore and possibly even magic that they may hold for us. And I feel that this is important to my practice and developing and working on my craft as an Australian witch. The author of this book, John Halkett, makes several references to the importance of Australian gum trees and the role that they played in our history, in particular with reference to their involvement in World War One, which is of particular importance to me as I had ancestors in the war, and I also have family heirlooms that have been passed down to me from important women in my family. Due to the involvement of the gum trees around the war, the Australian history viewed these trees among the most sacred, and gum trees were seen as a symbol of honor, sacrifice, resilience, and toughness. This points to the gum tree to be a genuine cultural icon and as iconic of a symbol as the Outback or the Southern Cross or Uluru. The botanical knowledge acquired by the Aboriginals is among one of the greatest intellectual accomplishments of any of the Pacific Indigenous people. It still surpasses the knowledge of some aspects of modern plant ecology. Australian Aboriginals kept the forests open with their light and regular burning. Without Aboriginal fire management, wildfires erupted. As a result, many areas of forest were damaged by the ferocity. Isn't that absolutely relevant for today? With the bushfires that are going on in Australia right now, and all the properties that have been lost, all the livestock that's been lost, and all those who have lost everything. And due to the massive amount of devastation and loss of bush and forest and vegetation in Australia, there has been a lot of talks about bringing back Aboriginal fire management. In the beginning of the 19th century in Australia, forest clearing took place on a reckless, environmentally irresponsible, and extravagantly irresponsible scale. There was no comprehension of nature conservation in those days, and the Europeans that had landed were more concerned with survival and building their lives. Early farmers were misled in their believing that tall, diverse forests guaranteed rich and fertile soil. Clearing the forests had serious repercussions of soil erosion, and they began to doubt that they had been improving the country. They were absolutely clueless, and they had no idea that eucalypts had adapted to an extremely dry environment, and that to survive these tough conditions, gum trees had to evolve and develop hardy and aggressive characteristics that improve their ability to grow in the poor nutrient soils. As well as talking about the symbolism of the gum tree in Australia, John Halkett also talks about wattles, which are the next most prominent tree to the country. In 1988, the golden wattle was officially declared the national floral emblem, which is an annual symbol of rebirthing at spring. It was also declared that the 1st of September is National Wattle Day, which is the first day of spring in Australia. Other trees are also mentioned in the book, such as Victoria's mountain ash and Tasmania's ancient Huon pine, and it has been recorded that these are some of the world's longest lived trees. I like the story in the book about an Australian soldier in Gallipoli who collected a pine cone and sent it home to his mum, who planted the seeds, and she was able to raise these lone pine trees. And then they were planted in the war memorial grounds as a symbol of honour to those who died. And one of her other sons who went to war, he died in the war. So it was also for him. And he died at the Lone Pine Ridge in Gallipoli. And then 75 years later, Australia sent seedlings of that lone pine tree's descendants to be planted in Turkey as a symbol of healing. So just from this one story, you can see that pine trees can be associated with honor, lost children, releasing the past, and healing. I was really excited to read about another well-known pine tree in Australia. From back in the olden days, people believed that spirits lived in trees and would not pass certain sacred trees without stroking their bark to appease the tree spirits, and other times they would make a wish. This folklore found its way to Sydney in the 1800s, where a Norfolk pine grew. The custom around the Sydney wishing tree was where lovers would walk around it 6 times, 3 times forwards, 3 times backwards, and then make their secret wish. So not only was it interesting to read that the pine tree was also associated with tree spirits and making wishes, but that we had folk magic practices happening in Australia almost 220 years ago. From the 1880s, the Australian bush started to become very much established in folklore. Poets, writers, and painters began to create a distinctive Australian image. This is not all that this book talks about. It also talks extensively about the part that trees play in the solution to some of the toughest environmental challenges that we face, such as climate change, salinity, soil loss, renewable energy, and more sustainable lifestyles, and addresses those very big issues in the context of how trees, and particularly Australian trees, can support in challenging those issues. And even though I think that those issues and topics are extremely important and relevant to today, that's not what I was reading this book for. I was reading this book to obtain knowledge of how Australian trees is woven into my cultural heritage. So thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, please do let me know. And I thank you for coming with me on this cultural journey. I would like to leave you with a poem written by the 19th century poet, Australian poet, a very well-known Australian poet, Banjo Patterson. It's called Song of the Future. We have no tales of other days, no bygone history to tell. Our tales are told where campfires blaze at midnight, when the solemn hush of that vast wonderland the bush hath laid on every heart its spell.